Well, good morning. Happy Monday to you. It is Monday, August 5th, 2024, and it's a beautiful day out there. And I don't know where you are, but for us here in Vail, yesterday evening was stunningly spectacular. It was high 80s with a nice breeze, completely overcast, and it looked like it was going to threaten rain. As a matter of fact, it did rain. It just sprinkled for a little bit. But up until that point, it was one of those lightning shows that you get, and just a beautiful evening. So this is one of the few places in Arizona where when it's summertime, it's actually enjoyable because you get a change in the weather and it's fun. Hope you had a great weekend. We had a great weekend. We are situating the new in-laws into town and learning all the things, which is good. And of course, they're adorable people. And we're so grateful that we get the opportunity to be with them. As far as I know, I think this week should be the week where we all settle into a new groove and all that sort of thing. I believe we'll be able to broadcast every day this week. But if we can't, if you get up online and I'm not there this week, just know that I'm either getting there or perhaps it was one of those days where I couldn't meet. But that should be that would be very, very rare. I'm assuming that this week will go on like normal. Yeah, we had great weather. We had a major storm. Was that on Thursday afternoon? We had a humdinger of a storm. I think it was Thursday. That was incredible. The house that they're going into has a tree, next door neighbor tree, and one of the branches just completely ripped off. So I'm thinking that it was quite a storm that we had. So anyway, I believe. Let's see what else. This coming Saturday is the second Saturday between the tracks, and so. I don't know if you know this, but on the second Saturday between the tracks, there's a vendor show. And it's gotten to be quite an unusually large vendor show. So there have been times when Jennifer and I've walked down there. I don't know if we'll go this weekend, but if you're in the Vail area and you want to, one thing I like to get between the tracks, I know this sounds crazy, but the bee lady is there and she sells honey, and the honey comes from her house, and she's basically here in Vail, and she harvests honey here in Vail. So if you eat that honey, apparently it's good for you because it'll protect you against all the different things that are localized here in Vail. So we might go see the bee lady because I think our honey is running low. Mrs. Hook will probably say, no, we have 25 jars of honey that you keep getting every time you see the bee lady. All right, so what else? I think that's about it. Let's look at our birthdays today. We have no birthday today, but we've got one tomorrow, so we'll look at that. And thank you, all of you, for joining online. I appreciate it. And I see the comments. We'll follow up on some of those comments. Let's see, what else? I think that's about it. Except that, boy, what a beautiful morning this morning. It was 77 degrees, so a little bit warmer than what it was last week, and a little bit more rain in the air, but it's still very, very beautiful for a morning walk. Oh, I don't know if I told Mrs. Hook this, but I was walking on our street, coming back from my morning walk, and almost stepped on a snake, a nice little diamondback, about 2 foot long, sitting maybe 4 inches off the edge of the road, but parallel to the edge of the road. And I was walking, and I'm like, oh, look at you. And then I said, is it alive or is it dead? Now, normally I wouldn't care, but because Jennifer would find out if it's alive or dead, she'd just go over and pick the thing up and say, yep, it's alive. Anyway, so I found a stick, and I poked the tail, and its little tiny head, just the head, turned around and looked at me, said, I'm alive. And then I walked away. So I probably should have scooched it off the road because there's so many people in our neighborhood that want to kill the snakes. I'm not making a judgment on that. I think they're just that's not what I do anyway. And I don't like it when they get killed. So I could have scooted it off the road, but I didn't because I wanted to get home. Anyway, so I guess, this is a very early, I think it's too early for snake season, but I think because we've had all this rain and because it's cooler at night, because the roads are warm, I think you might see a snake on the road early in the morning. So just be careful out there. Be careful at night because you might see one at night. Jennifer and I took this snake class, and the guy that taught the class did his research project. He got a big boot and artificially stepped on a bunch of snakes to see what the reaction of the snake was. And the large portion of the time, the snake did absolutely nothing, which you'd think that if you step on a snake, it's going to bite you. But apparently this instinct to bite happened, it was 10% of the time or something like that. So even if you step on a snake, there's a high likelihood that it's not going to bite you. A high likelihood that it's not going to bite you. So, but still be careful out there because it could, depending upon how it's feeling and how much you step on it, where you step on it, and all those sort of things. All right, let's get into our study. We are in 1 Kings chapter 16. We left with Zimri. Let me pull up my chart here. We left with Zimri, who was the captain of the army, and he took over after Elah was deposed, and he only reigned for 7 days. And so now we're going to get into another king, and this is the king that we'll start with. And let's see if we can get into, we're going to be in 1 Kings chapter 16, beginning of verse 21. Then the people of Israel split into two factions. Half supported Tibni, son of Ginath, for king, and the other half supported Omri. But Omri's followers proved stronger than those of Tibni, son of Ginath. So Tibni died and Omri became king. So after Zimri died, then you have this leadership vacuum, and two people wanted to be the next king. One of them was Tibni, and the other was Omri. And so there's a little mini civil war up in the northern kingdom of Israel. And it turns out that Omri was a better general or had better followers. It says here that it was Omri's followers that proved stronger, so he won. And most likely he had a battle with Tibni and won the battle, and so now he's all king of Israel. But remember, he's a military commander. And so now, let's just keep reading. Verse 23. In the 31st year of Asa, king of Judah, Omri became king of Israel, and he reigned 12 years, 6 of them in Tirzah. He bought the hill of Samaria from Shemer for 2 talents of silver and built a city on the hill, calling it Samaria, after Shemer, the name of the former owner of the hill. So isn't that interesting? We get a little bit of history of where the word Samaria comes from. Remember the Good Samaritan. He bought the hill for 2 talents of silver from a guy named Shemer. He bought the hill, and that's where he starts building the city. And apparently, I was doing some research on this hill, and it's 1,000 meters high, I think. So it's a fairly decent sized. Let's see if I can pull that up here, if I remember here, where that was. Man. Oh, here we go. It was right in here. This is the capital. It becomes the capital of the northern kingdom. Omri is the 6th king. Somewhere I saw that it's a good sized hill, and it's a good strategic location for a capital of Israel, because from this location, Jerusalem is also a great place for the location of a capital city because you can see all the way around you. Well, if you go into the northern kingdom, you can see the hill. This hill is kind of up like Jerusalem is, and so you can see for advancing armies and things like that. It's a good strategic location. And he buys the hill from a guy named Shemer, and so he calls the hill Samaria. And this is where Samaria comes from. and the capital of Israel becomes Samaria, and this is the guy that does it. It's Omri. And apparently, we only get a little bit of Omri here. And he's an evil king, started as an evil king, ends as an evil king. He's what, the sixth king now or fifth king now of Israel to the north. And he follows after the ways of Jeroboam, who was an evil king. So one of the things that a king is supposed to do is unite people. And, David became king, right? Because Samuel anointed him king. There was a uniting of the people around David because the religious leader said, this is the king that God wants. And so the people followed David because they believed that God had placed David, because God had placed David in this leadership position. And they followed Solomon pretty much for the same reason, because he was the son of David. But you have to work very, very hard as king to keep the kingdom united. Because if you don't do that, everybody's going to want to be king, and you're going to have fractions, and you're going to have people that want to usurp the kingdoms. And remember, in the southern kingdom, it's all based upon the lineage of the descendancy of the sons. So David's was Solomon and Solomon's son and so on and so forth. But in the northern kingdom, it's a free-for-all. And nobody seems to be able to unite the kingdom, Israel, the northern kingdom, by following God. At least so far, we haven't seen this yet. Because really, one of the ways that you can unite a kingdom, obviously, you can unite it by military force and say, you will follow me or I will kill you. That's one way to unite the kingdom. Or the other is to say, we are going to follow God, and I'm going to help us figure out what it is that God wants us to do, and I'm going to lead that way. And we get some of those kings in the northern kingdom, but they're few and far between. For the most part, the kingdom of Israel just struggles for its whole time. And they fall before the kingdom of Judah does. But in history, Omri is actually a great king. If you look, the Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone has Omri on it and says that Omri was a good king and conquered the land. So maybe militarily and nationally, he's a good king. But as far as a king who follows follows God, does not necessarily get there. But there's two things that a king can do. One is keep the peace, and the other is turn the nation towards God. And he does keep the peace, and he's a king for 50 years. If we go back to the chart, let's see if I can bring that up. Omri is a king from 885 to 874. So he is a good king for almost 10 years, right? So he's and apparently is a decent king in the annals of history, as far as what a king should do, which is keep the peace. Probably because he won this battle with his enemy Tibni. Yeah, he reigned 12 years. But let's get into the crux of the whole thing. But Omri, this is verse 25, but Omri did evil in the eyes of the Lord and sinned more than all those before him. He followed completely the ways of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, committing the same sin Jeroboam had caused Israel to commit, so that they aroused the anger of the Lord and the God of Israel by their worthless idols. As for the other events of Omri's reign, what he did and the things he achieved, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Omri rested with his ancestors and was buried in Samaria, and Ahab, his son, succeeded him as king. So now we're starting to get a dynasty here. We have Omri, who history looks upon favorably, but God does not look upon him favorably because they did not follow the ways of the Lord. But he has a son named Ahab, who goes out and shoots whales. No, different Ahab. All right, let's find out about Ahab. So we got a dynasty here. Let's see how long this dynasty lasts. Ahab is going to be king. Verse 29. In the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, Ahab, son of Omri, became king of Israel. And he reigned in Samaria over Israel 22 years. Ahab, son of Omri, did more evil in the eyes of the Lord than any of those before him. He not only considered it trivial to commit the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, but he also married Jezebel, daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and began to serve Baal and worship him. He set up an altar for Baal in the temple of Baal that he built in Samaria. Ahab also made an Asherah pole and did more to arouse the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, than did all the kings of Israel before him. In Ahab's time, Hiel of Bethel rebuilt Jericho. He laid its foundations at the cost of his firstborn son, Abiram, and he set up its gates at the cost of his youngest son, Segub, in accordance with the word of the Lord spoken by Joshua, son of Nun. So this is, well, let's look at this. He reigns for 22 years. Now, that is a long time. So 22 years plus his dad was 12 years. That's 24 years between he and his father. So that's a good chunk of time. And it's a good chunk of time to kind of unite the people. The problem is that Ahab does not follow God. He thinks following God is trivial, and he decides to marry this foreigner and start to worship Baal. And he builds the little Baal worship altar in the temple in Samaria. So this is probably part of the reason why the Jews did not like the Samaritans. First of all, they're not following God at all. Now, Judah doesn't necessarily follow God either, but at least in the south, they've got this lineage of kings, this dynasty, and they know they're supposed to follow God, even if they don't. And every once in a while, they'll get a king that starts to follow God, and they have a history to say, the reason why we're following God is because we are in the direct line of David and Solomon, and we know we're supposed to be following God. But up in the north, in Israel, they don't. They forget, they think that following God is trivial. And so they don't. And they set up an altar to Baal. Baal, of all people. And Baal is not good. And to set up an altar in a temple in Samaria for Baal is probably one of the worst things you could do for the nation of Israel. They're no longer following God. They're completely off the rails. And things will not go well for them because of this. This is probably the reason why the Jews in Judah hated the Samaritans, because they set up an altar to a foreign god in their town. And, well, first of all, they're a divided kingdom. You have Israel to the north, Judah to the south. They're a divided kingdom, and they already don't like each other because they're divided. But if the northern kingdom starts to follow Baal, the southern kingdom, this could prompt the southern kingdom to say, well, we don't worship Baal. We're better than that. And maybe a king is going to come along and look at the northern kingdom and the fact that they're worshiping Baal and say, wait a minute, we're gonna change this around. We're going to follow God. We know we have an ancestry and a history. We have a God that we should worship, and let's start worshiping that. And if I go to the chart, let's see here. Well, Asa was a good king. So, and his son Jehoshaphat, this is to the south in Judah, is also a good king. So there's a good chunk of maybe 75 years in Judah where they do follow God. So that's probably in response to the fact that in the northern kingdom they're worshiping Baal, which they shouldn't do. All right. Rebuilt Jericho. He laid his foundations, the cost of firstborn, in accordance with the word of the Lord spoken by Joshua, son of Nun. So he rebuilt Jericho, and this is during Ahab's time. Jericho is, oh man, I got to get up a map. Is because I think of Jericho as being next to Bethlehem, so being in the southern kingdom. But let me pull up a map and see where we are. Maps and 12 tribes. Maybe that'll do it. Yeah, it is. Okay, so here we have the 12 tribes, and you have Judah to the south. Benjamin pretty much caucuses with this tribe to the south. So I think Jericho is part of the southern kingdom at this point, but there's nothing really in here that says that it is. So we'll have to just keep an eye out for that and find out. But this is the rebuilding of the town of Jericho, and it cost him his son, and then he set up the gates, and it cost him his other son, and this is a huge cost. It doesn't say why it cost him his son, but it does, and so let's move on. We'll go to chapter 17. Let's see. Yeah, we'll do that. Chapter 17. Now Elijah the Tishbite from Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab, "As the Lord the God of Israel lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word." Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah, "Leave here, turn eastward and hide in the Kerith ravine east of Jordan. You will drink from the brook, and I have directed the ravens to supply you with food there." So he did what the Lord had told him. He went to the Kerith ravine east of Jordan and stayed there. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. So now we're introduced to a new character, and this is the prophet Elijah. Right now he shows up on the scene. So now we kind of know what the situation is when Elijah shows up, right? In the southern kingdom, you have Asa, who is the king, who seems to be doing a good job as king of Judah. And you have the northern kingdom, which has bad king, bad king, bad king. And then they get Omri and his son, which are both very, very bad kings. And they're starting to do Baal worship. And when this happens, then God raises up a new person to go and prophesy in the northern kingdom to see if he can turn the hearts and minds of the kings and the people of Israel in the kingdom to the north. And God decides to send up Elijah. And of course, we know about Elijah, one of the great prophets, and we can know about Elijah here. He says the word of the Lord came to Kevin. He says, "Leave here, presumably somewhere in the northern kingdom, turn eastward and hide in the Kerith ravine east of the Jordan." So he's now going east of the Jordan. If we bring up my map here, this is definitely the land of Gad and Reuben. It's the east of the Jordan. And this is definitely part of the kingdom of Israel. So it doesn't really say where Kerith is, but he goes across the Jordan River. And of course, the Jordan River is a major, major feature in the Old Testament. We've seen people cross the Jordan River. If you cross when it's during the rainy season, you can't get across. If you cross more during the dry season, you can actually get across and put stones and things like that. It's a river that flows all the time, but you can't just go up there and cross it. You have to wait until it's a time to cross, or you have to find really, really large stones and cross it that way. Or you swim across. I'm guessing it's probably in the low season, it's probably, I would love, as a hydrologist, I studied hydrology in college. I would love to study the Jordan River and find out kind of what the maximum flow is and the minor flow and what time of year you get those flows and how people crossed. That would be a great thesis for a PhD student, both in engineering and in theology, to do a thesis on the flows of the water of the Jordan River. The funny thing is, I can guarantee you there's probably been 50 people that have done that. So it wouldn't be new. Anyway, all right. So I guess we'll leave it there. We'll leave it at verse 5. We have Elijah, and he has ravens, and he's got meat and bread, and he's drinking from the brook. So we'll start up with verse 7 tomorrow, and we'll find out more about Elijah. All right. So let's close in. Let's close in prayer. Gracious God, thanks for this day, and thank you for the beautiful weather. Until we meet again, keep us in your grace. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so thank you for joining me. I hope you have a great day. Let's check over here on the mess. Oh, I don't want to do that. Sorry. Check on the messages. Let's see. Yes, we need more honey. Okay, well, we'll get some. There are definitely rattlesnakes out. A friend went to get her garbage can, and there was a large one which bit her dog. Oh, no. They think he'll live. Yeah, I mean, it's really the pets and animals, I think, that can be a problem because they do sometimes get out there and, they're curious. And so they want to kind of bother the snake, and the snakes don't like that. So they'll bite them. I think probably there's more pet injuries of snakes than there are of human injuries of snakes. Anyway, either way, thank you all of you joining online. Appreciate it. And we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.